Nihilus, the Lord of Hunger, a soul eaten by its own appetite. He had a name once. By the war's end, no tongue that could shape it remained. The Mandalorian Crusades came in armor that did not break, in numbers that did not stop, behind a doctrine that did not negotiate. They had no peer. The Republic had no answer. The Jedi did not yet know what they were. They did not fight at the scale of one man at a time. They fought at the scale of peoples. They broke the peoples. They silenced the tongues those peoples had spoken. They burned the songs those tongues had carried. They erased the names of the places those songs had named. By the time the crusade was finished with the world, there was no one left to call the world by what it had once been called. You will ask whether he was a Jedi who served the Republic, or a Republic soldier blessed by the Force. I have heard the question before. I have heard it generations later of others, Jedi generals of a different war, who served a Republic that did not outlive them either. What do you call them? In the tales of time, the question loses its weight. What walked out of the ash was not a soldier and not a Jedi. It was a body. The body had no people, no tongue, no place, but it had not yet been told it could die. The world they brought him to had been hungry longer than he had. Long before any weapon was loaded for it, Malachor had been a Sith school. The masters who built it, the masters who taught in it, the students who learned in it, all dust. Only the soil remained. The dark side held in that soil the way salt holds in old wood. The terrain itself was a memory, a patient one, waiting. The Mandalorians came, the Republic came, tens of thousands of bodies came. Above the planet, the Republic's commander gave a single, wordless command. The weapon below her, a mass shadow generator, built by a tech specialist who would never sleep again, fired. The gravity collapsed, the fleet fell, the surface broke. 3,000 years of dark side residue released at once. Every death in that hour released at once. The Jedi Council felt it from the other side of the galaxy. They called it a wound and tried to find words for what kind of wound it was. He did not feel it. He was inside it. A man hollowed by a war, in a place hollowed by an empire. At the moment, a weapon hollowed both, and the wound found a vessel that fit. What remained of him did not heal. It opened. What opened in him was not a hunger he chose. It was a hunger that chose him. She had been looking for what the weapon would leave behind. She knelt beside him. She named what he had become. She offered to teach the hunger to feed itself. She had come to Malachor as a Jedi Master. She had stayed as something else. She would later choose her own title from the old Sith register, and the title she chose was Lord of Betrayal. A teacher whose subject is betrayal looks for students who will carry the lesson out for her. She was not looking for an apprentice. She was looking for an executioner she could shape herself. She told him the wound could be directed. The lie was sufficient. He went with her. She brought him to Treyas Academy. The academy was older than her. The Sith who built it were dust. The Sith who taught in it had turned the building into a wound long before she walked it. She did not master it. She walked into it and named herself its inheritor. She found another student inside it, also broken, held together by hatred, where Nihilus was held together by hunger. She named the broken one her Lord of Pain. She named the newer one her Lord of Hunger. She named herself their teacher and called it the Triumvirate. The word is too generous. There was a teacher and there were two patients, and she was using them to test her thesis. The hunger ate the body before her thesis was done with it. He poured what was left of himself into the mask, then into the robes around the mask, then into the armor under the robes. The dark side held the shell upright because the man who had once stood in it was already gone. What walked out of Traius Academy was no longer a Sith. It was the hunger, wearing what the Sith had given it. The first meals were small, the next were not. In time, he found a colony of a species who saw without eyes, a hidden gathering of the Jedi the Order had thought safe. He drained the world in a single act. Every sentient, every animal, every plant, every blade of grass that had a memory of growing. The dark side itself held its breath. One survived, a woman whose own story this is not. The principle of the feast is older than any temple. The first meal satisfies, the second requires more than the first, the third more than the second. By the time the eater has fed long enough to know what feeding is, the meal that once filled him is only the meal he needs to feel anything at all. He did not feel the planet. He felt the absence the planet's draining left behind. He turned in time on his teacher, his brother in the work, held together by hatred where the Lord of Hunger was held together by hunger, turned with him. Together they stripped her of the force she had once mastered. The teacher of betrayal had taught well. The lesson came back in the shape she had built it in. She walked out of the academy she had inherited as something less than she had been when she found it. The triumvirate fell. The Lord of Hunger became its head. His master was gone, exiled by his own hand and his brother's. There was no one above him. There was no doctrine above him. There was no hunger above him. He took the ship of an empire that no longer existed. He named it after what he did to worlds. The Sith who came after him would call what he did annihilation. It was a generous word. The truth was simpler. He did not destroy. To destroy is to leave a ruin. He did not kill. To kill is to leave a body. He did not conquer. To conquer is to leave a banner. He emptied. He emptied bodies of the breath that had moved them. He emptied worlds of the force signature that had named them. He emptied stretches of space of the memory of what had been there before he passed. Whole systems went silent in his wake. The galaxy did not know how many. It could not. The count of the dead requires bodies, and where Nihilus had passed, there were no bodies. They feared him in the throne rooms of the empires he had not yet reached. They feared him in the academies that had taught him. They feared him in the council chambers of the Jedi who could not see him. The hunger had no superior. The hunger had no rival. The hunger had no end that anyone alive could imagine. His master had taught him to consume. She had also taught him to be consumed. The lesson was not yet finished with him. She had been at Malachor. She had taken the same wound he had, but she had taken it to keep from feeding it. He had taken his to feed on it. He reached for her with the only tool he had left. There was nothing in her to take. He reached harder. There was less to take. He met a wound shaped exactly like his own, turned the other way around. The galaxy had spent years learning to fear what could not be filled. It had not yet learned to fear what could not be drained. She struck him down. The hunger that the galaxy could not survive ended on a bridge. He had been wrong about the planet. He had been more wrong about the woman among its defenders. He believed himself a lord